All right, let's get into it. Today, we are launching let's call it a scientific investigation into a universal mystery that is absolutely 100% lurking in your home right now. We're going to dive into the strange, kind of chaotic, and often surprising world of drawer mathematics.
Okay, so you know how every great scientific journey has to start with a big question, right? Well, our little investigation here into this very personal space is no different. So let's establish our core research question, our underwear hypothesis, if you will.
And here it is, the big question. Now, before we dive any deeper, I want you to stop and really think about this. Just make a quick guess in your head. No, don't get up and go count. Just your best estimate. You got a number? Awesome. Just hang on to that. That's your personal data point for our little experiment here. Okay, and this is where things get really interesting. This brings us to our first major finding. We're going to start analyzing the data, and, well, this is where a huge gap starts to appear. A gap between what we think is going on and what's actually going on. Perception versus cold, hard reality. So, if you ask most people, and hey, maybe this was you a second ago, they'll give you a pretty reasonable number, something like 7 to 10 pairs. And that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, that's about a week's worth, maybe a couple of spares. It sounds so logical, so organized, totally under control. But then we do a physical count. We actually open that drawer and start counting what's really in there. And whoa, the numbers tell a completely different story. The reality, it's often at double, sometimes even triple what we thought. We're talking 15, maybe 25 pairs. Now that is a statistical anomaly that we just have to figure out. So let's just break this down. The key takeaway here is pretty wild. What we think we have is this neat, tidy 1-week supply. But what's actually in there is enough for a small army, or at least a multi-week trip with no laundry. It's the perfect example of our idea of order just completely clashing with a way more chaotic reality. So how in the world does this happen? What explains this massive difference? Well, there's this one theory. It's a little unconventional, I'll admit, but it's also kind of compelling. The idea is that, well, they just multiply in the dark, like some kind of spontaneous generation that only happens when you're not looking. To really get to the bottom of this, we can't just look at the total number. That's not going to cut it. No, we have to become taxonomists. We actually have to start classifying the different specimens we find in there. It's the only way to understand this complex little ecosystem. And check this out. This breakdown is just perfect because it's not one big homogeneous group, right? Oh no, you've got your good pairs. Those are your A-team, your go-tos. Then you've got the emergency backups, for laundry day procrastination. Then there's always a mystery pair. Where did that even come from? And of course, my personal favorite, the ancient survivor. That one's practically a living fossil. It's seen some things. All right, so where is all this going? We've talked about the perception gap, we've broken down the taxonomy of the drawer, and it all points to one final conclusion. A grand, unifying theory that pulls it all together and explains this whole domestic phenomenon. And here it is, the big reveal. This is the ultimate truth, the mathematical constant of the underwear drawer. You have just enough to avoid doing laundry for one more day, but you never have enough to actually feel organized. It's this perfect, delicate balance. It's functional chaos. And with that, our little investigation comes to a close. But now I'm turning the question back to you. Now that you know all this about the perception gap, the reality, the different specimens, what do you think is really going on in your drawer? What forgotten relics and statistical mysteries are just waiting for you to find them?